So here's a poppet that I made. There's a couple, but let's talk about this one first. This poppet I did not stuff. This poppet I made from a poppet that I had been using to heal a family member. This family member has chronic back problems, chronic neck issues, and I used this poppet for many years to heal this family member. And I kept it completely surrounded by crystals for many years. For probably, I would say, 3 years I've used this poppet. However, this poppet was not in this form, and I'm going to show you the easy way to make a poppet. And I used it for many years like this, out of this material, before I made an actual poppet. So here's an easy way to make a poppet. If you're not a sewer, any type of seamstress. So you take a little piece of some type of material, you put it in the middle of a piece of cloth, you pull it around until you've got the shape of a head, and this is hanging. Grab a rubber band or some type of tie, put it around the head as many times as you feel comfortable with. I'm going to do 3 because 3 is my number. So now you've got a poppet. Believe it or not, that's enough. That's enough to do healing. And I worked on this person for many years like this and had very good results. So you lay your poppet wherever you're going to keep it. I always keep my poppets in a separate area from most everything else, a box if possible. And then I surround it with crystals depending on where the issue is. So my family member had issues on the back. So I would put one under the poppet about where the back would be, and one on top of the poppet about where the back would be. Issues with the neck, I did the same thing. One under the poppet where the neck would be, and one on top of the poppet where the neck would be. And then the rest I just surrounded the poppet with. That was it. And I kept it in a box. This worked very well. I would go at least once a month, sometimes more often, depending on if I heard this person was having issues, and I would charge it. I always put intention into it, and I left that out. Once you get your poppet made, you need to charge it. You need to give it intention. You need to name it. You need to say, this is Jane Doe, and this poppet was made for healing. And then charge it with your energy. Give it intention to do what you have made it to do. And then, of course, set it up like I stated, wherever it is you're going to keep it. You don't want to have a poppet that you're moving around constantly, because if you do that, you're going to have to charge it constantly. It works where it's at. So if you're moving it around all the time, of course it's going to need to be charged a lot. So put it where you're going to keep it, have it charged. This is just my opinion. I shouldn't be telling you what you have to do, but this is my opinion of how I do it. So get it charged, get it set where you're going to keep it, and then I leave it. And this worked for many years. Well, one day I decided this, you have to understand, this was, the head of this poppet I'm talking about was about that big around, and then it hung about that low. And so I decided I wanted to condense it, and I wanted to actually make it a poppet. The material is chenille, very hard to sew, especially by hand. And I thought, I don't want it to be very big, because I knew that eventually I was moving to Texas. So I didn't want to make it very big, and I didn't want to stuff it. It's a thick material, so what I did was I doubled the material over, and I just made the poppet. So I made the poppet, I named it, I charged it, and I keep it with crystals in a box. I'm going to have to redo all that now, but I wanted to bring it out and show you. All I did with this poppet was make it, charge it, and I actually put 2 buttons for eyes. And I did that because I wanted it to be humanistic. I wanted it to really represent this person. I wanted it to be very real. I wanted it to be real. And I thought about putting a mouth and everything on it, but you know, come to think of it, I should have, because this person has a real problem with their speaking of what they need to say. So maybe that's something I'm going to work on. But at any rate, um, that's one way to make a poppet, is with no stuffing and just doubling the material, or you can actually triple the material or quadruple the material, and you don't have to stuff it. It's not thin, it's fairly thick, it's very cushiony, and it keeps you from needing batting. So if you don't have any batting, you don't have an old pillow you can use the stuffing from, you don't have to have it. You just have to have a little bit of material. So there's that idea. There's this idea, and there's this idea. So there's two ways you can do poppets other than Lady Grave Dancer's jar method, which is a great method. So that's three ways you can do poppets. And then the last way is, and don't judge, because it's not a great sewing job. The other way is to actually stuff the poppet. And this one has picked up some scraps from the chenille poppet, because they do shed, chenille sheds. But this is the other way, to actually stuff the poppet. I do have a few others, but they're in workings that I can't disturb, so I didn't want to pull those out. But so this is another example of a poppet. Now, if I were doing real hoodoo work, this poppet would have a heart on it. These are healing poppets that are not for any heart-related issues. They're all muscular or other types of healings, so it's not necessary. But this is an actual stuffed poppet, and you can see that it doesn't take a lot of stuffing. By the way, I didn't mention, don't forget the herbs. Don't forget the healing herbs that are right for whatever ailment you're working on. There's herbs in this one. So you get your two pieces of material, you put one down, you sew it together except for a little spot, and then you put your herbs. You can feel the little herbs in there. So you stuff your herbs in, sew it up. Same thing that you did with the poppet that I showed you for the fertility. Same thing with this one. You sew it up, you leave a little spot open, you stuff it, and you put your herbs in. What I did with this guy was I mixed my herbs in with the batting, and just kind of, it all went in together, so I didn't have spots, big bump of herbs, so I can feel them all kind of throughout him, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that's a stuffed poppet. So you have 4 examples of poppets. You can do the jar poppet like Lady Grave Dancer, and I really highly suggest again that you go watch the videos that she has on that. It's very easy to do, very disposable once you are done, depending on the spell you're doing, whether it's, well, just depending on the spell you're doing, and it's a lot easier to add certain ingredients if you're doing it that way, and depending on whether the spell is a positive spell or not, it's more it can be more accessible for a lot of ingredients, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's a great idea. But if you are a hands-on person and you want to make actual poppets, then this is a stuffed version, this is a just flat material version, and this is an easy version for those who don't sew and don't want to sew. And then, of course, you've got crystals. Now, you can use all types of stones. You don't need to use just crystals. I use fluorite, I use jasper, I use a lot of different crystals. I just grabbed up a bunch of my quartz here to give you an idea. I didn't want to disturb the crystals that I was using for the poppets, because I just want to charge it and place it back with those. But you can use any healing crystals that you're used to using, or even those you want to experiment with. It's amazing to me the results I get from poppets, and perhaps this person that I'm talking about who does frequent my channel now and then would be willing to discuss it, the results that she gets from poppet work from me. And we'll see about that. Maybe I'll do a quick interview with her at some point. But I do want you to know they're very effective. They're very easy to make. Even if you're not a seamstress, they're really easy to make. I mean, you put the needle in one spot and you just go over and over and over, over and over and over and over and over, all the way around. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be nice. I mean, you can see that I didn't, and I can sew, but I didn't worry about looks or any of that thing. This was simply for a healing poppet. I didn't care how it looked. I just wanted to get it done. This one I did a little better job on because it was a little more special, but you don't have to make it pretty, and you don't have to know what you're doing. You just have to be able to sew it together. And you don't even have to be able to sew it together. You can make it like this. You don't even have to be able to sew it together. You can use safety pins, those little tiny safety pins, or you can use stick pins and do it that way. Or you can just cut out a piece of material in a poppet shape and have that be your poppet. And I am sure that it would work for you. I am positive it will work for you if you charged it correctly and put your intentions into it and did your healing on that poppet. I am positive that it would do what it needed to do for you, or any other working you had. Poppets aren't just for healing, and poppets are not just for positive magic. That's just what I happen to be talking about today. That's what I use these two poppets for, so that's what I'm talking about today. But poppets are not just for healing, and they're not just for positive magic. They are used for many, many types of magic, and they're very effective in any type of magic they're used for. They're extremely effective magical tools. So that's my video on poppets. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative, and I hope it gave you a little inspiration to maybe try to make your own poppet. And I hope you have a great evening. And remember, you are all divine, sacred beings of light and love.